Deal with reaction. Former FBI Deputy Director, friend of the program, Dan Bongino. By the way, Bongino is back. He's on Rumble, 10 a.m. Monday morning. His show, the Dan Bongino Report, starts. Welcome back to the airwaves. I know you told me you were only going to be at the FBI for a year. You kept your commitment. Let's talk about what you're seeing here.
You know, listening to Tim Walz and these other, left-wing jokers talk about public safety as if they have any kind of like lodestar or 12-step manual to get it done it's tragic. It's not funny. It really is tragic. These guys are clowns. Before people like Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump with that go get 'em boys attitude where you get these bad guys off the street came into power, they had to clean up the mess from these clowns running their cities the way they did. But to hear Walz talking, let me show you what real cops do. Well, I know what real cops do. Real cops would do real cop stuff, more real cop stuff, if people like Tim Walz and others would let them be real cops. Sean, just think about this, man. I'm a numbers guy. I like spreadsheets. Numbers can be boring. This one's not boring, I promise you. The President of the United States, under his first year, we just had the lowest number of homicides in recorded history. Not only that, the percentage drop from last year, which understandably was still pretty low, was also a record number. That was under this administration. Why? Because he let cops be cops and he let us go get the bad guy.
Dan Bongino is absolutely right here. And don't think that the cops in Minnesota didn't want to help ICE. They definitely wanted to. Whenever you're in law enforcement, your desire is to have peace. You look at other officers as being in your same boat. You want to come to work, you want to do your job. You're really into law and order, keeping people safe, keeping the border safe, and going home the same way that you came in. So it wouldn't surprise me if the cops were really upset at the administration that they were told to stand down. As a matter of fact, I know they were, because at least 18 of them resigned from the Minneapolis police force and went over to ICE. But I got to talk about Dan Bongino. This was my man. You hear me? I used to listen to this guy when I would go on runs to pick up charitable donations for the Vietnam vets and police organizations and the youth that they served. So I go on vacation. I'm in the Bahamas because Dan always socked it to the left. You know what I mean? He always came with receipts and he gave it to him. I mean, I used to, whenever I had to make runs further up north, I looked forward to it because I knew I could cut on the radio and I could hear this guy talking truth to power and just being strong. You know what I mean? Being a man's man. And it's hard to find that nowadays. So I go on vacation. I'm in the Bahamas. It's right after President Trump got elected. So he's picking his cabinet. And the announcement over the news came that Dan Bongino was appointed to the FBI as FBI's number 2. Oh my gosh, I yelled so much so that the patrons in the restaurant turned around, they looked at me, the owners turned and looked at me like, what the heck is going on? And I'm like, yes, that's my man, He was just so passionate about Trump, about the country, about not having government in everything that we do, and just pretty much making the country better again for all Americans. So when he got into office, I'm thinking, all right, yeah, he's getting ready to give it to the left. He's going to go after all the traitors. He's going to go after all of the bad guys. He's going to find out who did this nonsense to Trump. And we're going to see arrests. Finally, we're going to see people arrested. I didn't get that from him. And then on top of it, the Jerry Epstein debacle where he and Kash Patel got up and pretty much said there's nothing to see here. I was disappointed by that. So in my eyes, he lost credibility. But he's right here in talking about Tim Walz and the debacle that's going on in Minnesota. But let's continue.
Shut down the border. It's not freaking rocket science, man. But again, to hear these clowns on the left talk about this like they have some bedrock model of the left-wing success on public safety it's a tragic joke on all of us. It's a shame.
All right, let's talk about this guy, Alex Pretti. And, you know, I know it was 10 days prior. I will concede the point to their family attorney that is not related to what happened when he was shot. However, he was armed in both instances. However, he's saying, come assault me, mother effer. However, he's spitting at agents and law enforcement and then kicking their car and knocking the taillight off while armed at the same time. People ask me, because I've been a pistol carry permit my entire adult life, you learn to de-escalate. That is critical. You learn safety and security. You don't start confrontation. In this video, he's starting confrontation. You don't resist. What do you see?
Well, the video, I think, just came out, what, today or so? So there's going to be an investigation on this. It's going to be an exhaustive one. There's going to be body cam video and everything else that's going to come out over time. Obviously, the individual had the right to carry a firearm, a huge Second Amendment advocate.
I agree.
You know, that is, yeah. Yeah, so you know that we have to silo that one off. You have both the First and Second Amendment right to protest in the country, and also you can carry a firearm. But I want to see this thing play out. I think the responsible thing to do is for everybody to gather all the inputs and produce a informed output at the end. And we just don't have all the data yet. That's just the facts. So I'm going to let this thing play out, and I'll form an opinion on it when I have all the inputs to get it all together.
You know, I want to go back to something that you said about when this goes back to July of last year, and you put out a very cryptic tweet, and you didn't disclose your specific findings, but you were shocked at what you have learned in the short time you've been on the job at that point, about 6 months or so.
I'm going to have to stop this right here because I feel like Dan's being a little light-footed on this one. Just knowing that law enforcement is out there to enforce the law, right? They go out there every day. They risk their lives. They're going after predators. They're going after pedos. They're going after murderers. They're going after the worst of the worst. They're not getting any help from the administration, right? They're not getting any help from the police officers. They're pretty much on their own, so much so that ICE had to call in Border Patrol. So that's where you have these two organizations who are trying to work together to get these people in. Each organization is a little different from the other. Now, when it comes to being armed and, following the law with gun usage and that sort of thing, for the most part, when it comes to peace officers all over the board, that's uniform. The rules and regulations of engagement are uniform. But when you have this guy here, Alex Pretti, fighting the officers, resisting arrest, getting in their faces while they're trying to do their duty, and he has a gun on him, okay? He goes over to the car. He spits on the officer. If he didn't spit on him, he spit on his window and then kicked the light out. That's criminal. In any other administration, he would have been arrested. Why not now? So I beg to differ on that. But let me know what you think in the comments, and make sure you like and subscribe. But let's continue.
And that a republic cannot survive knowing what you found. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to keep it short, but I was sitting in the office on a Friday night over at Hoover on the 7th floor of the FBI building. And I was just me and the security detail. It was late. I was the last one around. It was only, I wasn't trying to be a martyr. There was nothing else, for me to go home to. I was alone that weekend. So I stayed at work late. And I was reading through some stuff that you can only read in the office. And it just involved basically the collusion hoax, Crossfire Hurricane, as it went by, and the various other spinoffs. And when you read from the inside, Sean, when you see the details of what these just absolute animals did to President Trump, and the barriers that broke down and the guardrails, it was, I mean, I'm not shocked often, Sean. I'm really not. I'm not, again, I'm not trying to put on some faux set of armor. I'm just not shocked often. I've lived 1,000 lifetimes between the Secret Service, the NYPD, running for office, TV shows, and all this other stuff. Just reading through it and seeing it in detail for the first time all put together, you can run a republic like this. You can't. Wow. You absolutely cannot. It was just stunning how all these guardrails broke down at the exact same time, and nobody there. Thank God there was it was and still is a long-ranging investigation into this stuff, because it's just frightening how no one thought to speak up and say, hey, man, not only is this wrong, this is like demonic. This is evil stuff. They ruined this man's life, President Trump, over, you get the rest, bull, fill in the blanks.
I got it. We call
Sean,
Schiff.
It was always BS. Yeah. It was always BS. But I want you to understand, listen to me, everyone out there. It was always BS. There was never anything there. It was always BS.
All right, Dan Bongino's back and unfiltered. We'll be watching. Dan, thank you. We always appreciate you coming on.
Well, I guess the statute of limitations ran out on being able to prosecute some of these crimes. I know Adam Schiff now is in court. He's they're doing Senate hearings or something like that, trying to charge him. I know they're trying to find things on these individuals to be able to prosecute them for their past trials, their past, the things that they did to Trump. But I believe what Dan Bongino said was right. This is demonic. And the only thing that I could say about Trump, and whether or not he realizes it, God is using him. Right? That's the only way that you could take your business and allot your business to your family, like pretty much resign as CEO, take on a job where you're only making $400,000 as opposed to the $1 billion that you make in real estate and other ventures that you have, get shot at, they attempt to unalive you at least 3 times, they prosecute you, they turn misdemeanors into felonies, any and everything that this man does. I mean, he goes to help save Christians that are being prosecuted in an African nation, and they call them racist and fascist and Nazi and Hitler. And then you have this latest, I think he's an attorney general that's going up for election in Philadelphia, saying that he's going to unalive Trump. I'm going to unalive him, and I'm going to go to court, and they're going to convict me, and it'll be a capital crime in the first degree. You can't make this stuff up. What else could it be but demonic? And then at the same time, you have the left going so far left that the Democrats are now looking, I don't recognize them anymore. They're looking more and more like far left liberals, like communists and Marxists. The things that they believe, the things that they're doing, the ways that they're acting is demonic. I hear someone bit off an ICE officer's finger. Are you a rabid dog? But I digress. I mean, what's going on is absolutely crazy, but I'm glad Dan Bongino is back on his platform. I would love to hear more as to what happened or what didn't happen, what he wasn't able to do. I know there's a lot of things that are classified that he probably can't talk about, but I'd like to know why more wasn't done, that I can see anyway. But maybe you guys see something different. If you do, let me know. Okay? But make sure you like, subscribe, and share. And if you're feeling nice and generous, buy your girl a cup of coffee. The link's in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.